What is up, guys? It's your girl Becks, and welcome back to the race rundown post Belgian Grand Prix this past weekend at Spa. We're just going to get straight into it. First off, 10th place grid penalty for Max for exceeding his engine parts. We are not shocked by this. It has become custom almost for many a team to experience grid penalties as a result of engine parts needing to be replaced. All eyes on you, Yuki Tsunoda. So, beginning of the race, as always, Mr. Lando Norris again. Close your ears if you're a McLaren fan. Mr. Lando Norris bottling the start, losing 3 positions and going wide into the gravel. Shock. Lack of shock in my voice. I'm not shocked by that at all. He seems to need to practice his starts, does our Lando Norris. Then, absolutely amazing drive from Piastri up there from the start with Checo battling it out. Snap for oversteer a bit later on in the race for Sainz on lap 17. Heading round that bend straight into the gravel. Bit of a snap. I think he did really well to maintain that position. Did an amazing drive this past weekend. We'll get on to Sainz and the most recent Sainz news a little bit later on. So, at this particular time, everything is going quite well for Mercedes. You may be thinking to yourself, Becks, you're not a Mercedes fan and you've done nothing but sing their praises for the last 2 races. You would be correct. People. I am by no means a Merc stan, okay? But I can appreciate a good strategy when I see one. And McLaren and Mercedes have both had questionable strategies in the past. However, Mercedes are smashing it at the moment. I think they're allowing the drivers to have a bit more control over their own race strategy. And I like that. Obviously, when that goes too far, you end up like Ferrari, all eyes on you. However, I think it's working well for them at the moment. George then decides at this point, he passes Perez, he decides, I want to go for a 1-stop. Now, when I heard this, I was a little bit apprehensive because everyone else was on a 2-stop strategy. Now, I always feel like when you go against the grain, particularly at such an iconic track, things could go wrong. In this particular case, it was the correct call, and I think George absolutely smashed it. Absolutely smashed it, by the way. Like, winning the race, absolutely fantastic performance from him. But as we all know by now, F1 fans, the Mercs had a little bit of a difficult weekend once again. Russell wins, does the podium, everything's great. All of a sudden, it comes over the news. Sky F1 is alight with the news that Russell was disqualified from the Belgian Grand Prix for his car being underweight. This is an issue, of course. Now, Charles said it right in his post-race interview that it's a shame that he'd done the podium with Lewis and celebrated, and it was great, and the points were rolling in for Merc, and they were all happy and smiles and fantastic, and then all of a sudden that gets stripped away because your car is underweight. It is disappointing. However, I understand that the FIA needs to do what they need to do, and it is what it is, right? There's no compromising on that. It is what it is. Rules are rules. George gets disqualified. Sad times. Sad times for everyone involved. Then, of course, Team LH are light, as always. Lewis wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Headline everywhere. Piastri, P2. P3, Charles Leclerc. Now, everyone online, I've noticed, has been saying that with the performance of Mercedes, Lewis is probably kicking himself, right, for joining that team, for deciding to join Ferrari next year. I disagree. I think it looks good for Fred. It shows to him that Lewis is still in his prime. He can still win races. Shows that he was a good, sturdy investment. However, it is concerning that Merc is outperforming Ferrari right now. But that could change. You never know. And I know all the Red Bull fans are going to be like, yeah, well, they only won because George's car was underweight. I disagree. I also think that the Red Bull fans have no position to speak right now when Perez is performing the way that he is. Sorry for anyone that is a Perez fan. That is just my honest opinion. You know what I'm like by now. I will speak my mind. I will give you my honest opinion. And my honest opinion is that as talented of a driver as Perez is, he's not performing right now. And I think if I was Perez, I would be very concerned and very wary over my job and whether I would still have a seat at the end of the year despite signing a multi-year contract. We've seen it happen before. It will more than likely happen again. I feel like Red Bull is one of the most cutthroat teams on the grid. I can see them getting rid of Perez very, very quickly. So that is that, okay? So that was the race as a whole. Now, the off-track news has been a light this weekend. We finally have some driver announcements ahead of the summer break. So we're not going to be sat around bored, everybody. We've got some announcements that have come out of the woodwork. So the first one was Mr. Esteban Ocon signing for Haas. Am I happy about this? Well, I personally am not the biggest fan of Ocon. It's going to sound horrible, but just hear me out on this. I'm not the biggest fan of Ocon because I don't think that he is a team player. That was evident with his behaviour alongside Gasly. I don't think that he is a team player at all. I think that him and Ollie, hopefully he will lighten up a little bit. And he will be nicer to Ollie and a bit more of a team player. I'm not sure, to be honest. We'll have to see. So Esteban Ocon has signed for Haas. We have the news surrounding Mr. Sergio Perez. I would be very concerned if I was Perez. I understand that he is frustrated about all the speculation about his job and whether he is going to get to stay or not. Personally, I think if you perform better, you wouldn't have to worry about that. That's just my unpopular opinion. And the fact that he could say, oh, it was just one really bad race. No, sir, you've been consistently bad since you've signed your Red Bull contract. It's almost like you've signed on the dotted line, you don't need to try anymore. Well, newsflash, you do, because if one team principal is going to kick you out quicker than you can say boo to a goose, it will be Christian Horner. He has zero loyalty to anybody. And yeah, I think I would love for Perez to stay. I personally like Perez. I know a lot of people think that I don't, but I do. I like Perez as a driver. I think he is very talented when he has his moments. However, his moments are few and far between at the moment. That is my unpopular opinion. Do you think that Perez will get to stay at Red Bull? I hope he does, but let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think that Checo could be out of a seat? And another piece of off-track news that I am over the moon about is that Mr. Carlos Sainz, Mr. Chili Pepper himself, has signed for Williams on a multi-year deal. Now, this has brought about a lot of memes on the internet that I absolutely love, i.e. Team No Appendix. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon side by side are the first team lineup with no appendix. Does that mean they're underweight? No, I'm joking. However, with this news, I missed it because I had a very busy day at work. However, I am over the moon. Was it the team that I wanted him to go to? Not necessarily. We all know that I've been rooting for Sainz to go to Merc. However, Williams is a Merc extended team. So I half got my wish. So I am A-okay with that. I think him and Albon will go really well together. I think Albon can learn a lot from Sainz. Sainz can help James build the team. I think it's a really, really strong performance lineup from a contractual standpoint, I would love to see Williams back to their winning ways again. I know they're quite a long way off in terms of car development and things like that. However, I think with James at the helm and this lineup, I think they can do wonderful, wonderful things. And I'm excited for the future of Williams for sure. I am very, very excited about this. Then going a little bit back to some Red Bull news here. Obviously, with Checo's seat a little bit up in the air at the moment, lots of people are asking whether we will see either Mr. Yuki Tsunoda or Daniel Ricciardo taking Perez's seat. Personally, I don't think either of them are good enough. That's just my unpopular opinion. Out of the two, I think that Yuki is probably better suited for that seat. I think Daniel has had his opportunity and should be racing for somebody like Haas, to be honest. I think that it is stupid for him to think that with his current performance he could get into that Red Bull car once again. A lot of people will disagree with me. However, yeah, I think Danny Rick is a bit past his prime at the moment, to be honest. So that then leaves the speculation surrounding Red Bull. Alpine with a seat still left empty. Obviously, Williams has now been confirmed, so that's great. Haas has obviously now been confirmed, which is fantastic. Stake F1. Will Bottas be staying? That is the question. I would love for him to stay. However, or I don't know if there will be a potential switch. Maybe Danny Rick could end up there and Valtteri go to RBs. I don't know. Would we like to see Valtteri at the RBs? I'm not sure. I think he's happy at Stake at the moment. But then the lack of contract concerns me a little bit because it's like, well, you're outperforming your teammate, yet you don't have a contract, which is a little bit worrying. But then also the fact that obviously they've signed Hulkenberg for 2025 onwards till at least the end of 2026. So it's either going to be Zhou, Bottas or nobody, which I think that if we lost Zhou, that would be a loss to the sport. Because yes, he's not up there in contenders consistently, but he's not a bad driver. Same with Bottas. Bottas has done a lot for Lewis's career. I'm just going to say it the way it is. Without Bottas, Lewis wouldn't have won as many races, and that's a straight fact. Team LH can fight me if they want, but it's 100% a fact. He would not have won that many races had Bottas not been covering his arse, basically, throughout the whole of 2021. If Bottas wasn't covering his arse, he wouldn't have won that many races, and that's a straight fact, and I will fight anyone that says otherwise. But I think he's a great racer on his own, and I think that if he went to the RBs, he would have a little bit more potential in a slightly better car to race alongside Yuki, calm him down a little bit, because Yuki is a bit of a pocket rocket, so calm him down a little bit, get the team back on track, make sure that they're back, you know, to sort of midfield level, and just thrive there. I think he needs a little bit of a faster car, but he needs a team where he can still keep his passion for, you know, the fun side of Formula One. I feel like he's really sort of in his element at the moment. He's not taking life too seriously. He's not as what I would call uptight as he was when he was at Merck. He hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid. He can relax a little bit. It's almost like he knows that there is no championship contention, so he can just not slack off, but just enjoy the sport for what it is, which is great, and I love to see that, and I love to see him thriving in that environment. But would I like to see him stay at Stake? I'm not sure. I would secretly like to see him with the RBs. But then that leaves Danny Rick. Where would he be? Would I like to see Danny Rick at Stake? Potentially, you know, a straight swap for them both. I don't know. I really don't. I really, really don't. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. And those are the only ones left. Because Tsunoda's got a contract till the end of next year. A lot of contracts, I've noticed there's a lot of single year contracts being signed at the moment, but obviously Audi are joining in 2026. So there's just a lot going on and off track at the moment. Now we've got summer break for a little while, so there's not really a lot going on. The final thing I want to talk about and touch on, there's 2 points actually. We're going to call them conspiracies. This is the first time that I have touched on this because I don't like to theorize too much, right? Obviously, I spend a lot of time because of this podcast watching everything to do with Formula One, making sure I'm on top of all the Formula One news. I know what's going on in the sport, outside of the sport, and I've got a couple theories. Me and my friend Callan and me and my loving father have been theorising. And the first theory I want to start with is surrounding Red Bull, because I feel like this has been a very Red Bull heavy podcast. So why don't we just start there? The first theory is surrounding Red Bull and the fact that ever since Mr. Adrian Newey has taken a step back from Red Bull, not only have we noticed that the cars have been just a little bit slower, we've also noticed the downfall of Sergio Perez. Now, me and my father have a theory for this. It just so happens that the slight lull in Red Bull performance just so happens to coincide with the fact that Mr. Newey is leaving. And do we think that he maybe in his contract had that they couldn't use a certain piece of, say, aerodynamic design to the car if he wasn't a part of the team? Do we think that he may have secretly taken a bit off the car that nobody knew what it did? Or had in his contract that while he wasn't in the team he couldn't use it? Obviously, speculation. However, it does seem very suspicioso that the Red Bull is now slow ever since that news came out. Do we think that he has been potentially giving insight to other teams? I don't know. He's not technically left until the first quarter of 2025. However, he has not been on camera all that often. He has not been around the Red Bull garage all that often. And honestly, who knows where he will end up? Jeremy Clarkson at the Silverstone GP obviously put out a little bit more speculation that he was not shopping for a house in Maranello. He was shopping for a house in Oxfordshire. Do we believe Mr. JC? Do we think that Mr. Clarkson's farm himself is just stringing us along, or do we think that that could actually be a legitimate piece of information? We will have to wait and see, as there are no announcements on Newey yet. However, it got the internet a-stirring, didn't it? And it added to that conspiracy. So that's that. The second conspiracy that my friend Callan and I have been talking about a couple of times recently is the fact that ever since Alonso signed his new contract with Aston Martin, he has been consistently slower than Lance Stroll. Now, before everybody starts with, oh, Becks, you're just a Stroll hater. Why do you hate Stroll so much? I don't hate Stroll. I hate his dad for spending money on him and buying his son's way into F1. But do I think Stroll should be behind the wheel of a Formula One car? Absolutely not. I don't. I don't think he belongs there. And it's been proven that they have rigged races before for our boy Strolly Stroll to win races. It's been written in contracts before that his teammates had to leave room for him and let him past and be consistently behind him. And that's bullshit. That's almost as bullshit as the McLaren team orders. Just saying. So the conspiracy that we have put together in our minds is that, do we think there is a clause within the Aston Martin contract that states that Alonso has to be consistently slower than Stroll in order to not make him look bad? Would I put it past Mr. Daddy Stroll to put that in the contract? Absolutely not. I wouldn't put it past him for a fucking second. It, again, just seems very fishy. Like, you think that you would have figured that out. You know, you think you would have tried to hide it a little bit better if that was the case, you know? But of course, that is obviously speculation. Let me know what you guys think about these conspiracy theories down in the comments. Obviously, I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. We're building a lovely little community right now. And I love to hear from you guys. I love all the likes on TikTok. I love hearing your opinions in the comments. Thank you so much for sticking by me throughout the season so far. Obviously, we're halfway through. That means we are now halfway through the race rundown of season 1. I'm going to be very sad when we reach the end of this season. However, I've got plans for a season 2. I know, Becks, it's so early. However, I don't want to let you guys down. I've got a nice little audience growing and I love you guys so very, very much. So, with that being said, we have now the summer break. A 23-day gap from now until the race in the Netherlands on the 23rd to the 25th of August. That, for me, is a big gap without speaking to my community, and I don't like it. So, I am going to stay up to date with the most recent news. Not a lot happens throughout the summer break, so I'm going to stay as up to date as I possibly can. And I may even do a fun little cameo episode with my loving fiance. Maybe even a funny little bonus video for all those people that would love to listen and watch on YouTube. Me and him, he is not the biggest Formula One fan. However, he tries, bless him, and I appreciate him for that. So maybe we could give him a little bit of a test on drivers and teams and just see how much he actually knows. I feel like that would be a fun bonus episode for everybody during the summer break. I'm also going to do some tech deep dives in that time. And yeah, just continue to build this community into a successful Formula One podcast. Obviously, you guys are a small community at this moment in time. I want to make it bigger. I want to grow. So if you guys could like, comment, share. If you're on Spotify or Apple or Amazon, please rate the show. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to follow along. Find me on socials. I'm on Threads now, so you can follow me on Threads. A lot of you already do. Hi to anybody that follows me on Threads and also found the podcast through there. Lovely to meet you all. You're all a lovely bunch of people. Follow me on socials. Like the show. Follow the show on all the platforms. Even subscribe on YouTube if you want. You guys get additional video content every now and then on YouTube. And until next time, enjoy the summer break and I'll be back soon. Peace.